If you played Kingdom Hearts on your PlayStation 2 back in the day, you might remember some things differently than what you get on the modern HD port of the game. If your first experience with Kingdom Hearts was on the HD versions, however, there's actually two distinct versions of Kingdom Hearts 1 unique to the PS2 that you've never experienced: the international release and the very first Japanese release. Both have their own unique game balance and content differences, and in this retrospective, I'm going to cover what it's like to play these vanilla releases, with a couple footnotes for the PS2 Final Mix version. Immediately upon opening the game, you get the original title art featuring Sora looking sussy with a whole ass fish carcass hanging from his mouth. I always like this title art because it parallels the vanilla Cage 2 art where Sora has sea salt ice cream similarly on the shore. I think I prefer the vanilla menu art since it focuses on Sora's personality rather than whatever he's doing here in KH1 Final Mix, looking like that image of an ant with a stick and bag over its shoulder. When you start a new game, you're presented with two difficulty modes, Normal and Expert. That's right, it's not called Proud Mode here. KH1 International was the debut of Proud Mode, but it didn't have its official name until Final Mix. In the Japanese version, however, there's absolutely no difficulty options and you're thrust straight into the game on normal mode after choosing your vibration setting. Exclusive to the Japanese versions, however, is the PS2 install function, which lets you install KH1 directly to a PS2 hard drive if you have one. Birth by Sleep OGs will remember this menu, as the UI of the trio walking along the progress bar was reused for BBS on the PSP version. I chose Proud Expert mode for my international playthrough since Japanese only had normal. First big thing to note about the vanilla ability routes for those who have never experienced vanilla. There are almost no combo modifiers here in vanilla. No slap shot, no slide dash, no ripple drive, all you get is vortex, aerial sweep, and blitz. Because of this, picking weapon routes is all about the passive abilities, so my weapon route choices were easy. It's either you want early second chance, or you want that extra MP. One last significant difference between vanilla and Final Mix ability routes is when Sora unlocks his third accessory slot. Sword and Shield gain that third slot 3 levels earlier, and Staff gets it a whole 9 levels earlier. For International, I picked the Shield. I intended on getting Ultima Weapon and fighting post-game super bosses, so the second chance and Lucky Strike here was great. I then dropped the Staff because you only lose a little bit of AP, which is fine because you don't need that much AP early on anyways. This was the ability route that I chose on my first ever playthrough of KH1, since I felt that protecting my friends would be the most Sora appropriate choice and not because I knew anything about ability routes. Swinging this shield around was just as awkward as ever, but I made it through. For my Japanese playthrough, however, I picked the opposite choices and rocked plus shield and minus staff for that sweet +1 MP. To top off my starting choices, I opted for the midday EXP route. If you didn't know, these choices at the start dictate the pace at which you gain experience throughout the game. Either you start off leveling fast and slow down in the late game, start off slow and speed up in the end game, or an even middle ground. Dawn route slows down in the early level 40s, so I opted for the midday EXP route since I knew I would need some levels past level 50 for the postgame. For my Japanese playthrough, however, I defaulted to Dawn since this version lacks quite a bit of the end game, more on that later. Immediately upon gaining control of Sora, I can already feel the 30 FPS. Frame rate makes a huge impact on gameplay in KH1, a game that is much more timing and rhythm dependent than most would assume. It's not unplayable by any means though, it just takes a bit to get used to after being spoiled by 60 FPS for so long. And as always with these older games, CRT TVs make this frame rate feel worlds better than modern displays. When you pause the game, however, menus change to 60 FPS for the sake of smoother inputs, a convention that was once commonplace in JRPGs. On PS2, there are some big differences in the controls. There is no analog camera control, as the camera is turned only horizontally with L2 and R2, and the right stick scrolls the command menu. You can even click R3 instead of pressing X. Speaking of pressing X, the Japanese version uses JP controls, so you attack with circle instead and jump with X on this version. There are also no reaction command prompts for interactables and limits. All of these are activated through the 4th command menu slot, which is reserved as the context button. Because of this, summons are located deep within the magic tab instead.
Whoa!
After the usual Destiny Island shenanigans and a heart-stopping near loss to Riku, I got underway into Traverse Town, where plenty of small differences appeared. On the original versions, the HP alarm is pitched up higher than the rest of the games, which is fitting because Sora has a more high-pitched voice as well. Leon beat my ass on International since I was still getting used to the lower frame rate, but I beat him easily on the Japanese version. On both versions, Leon coughed up a meager 100 money instead of the usual 500 he gives in Final Mix, contributing to a rougher start to Sora's wallet since the Pretty Stone also sold for way less than usual. After a battle with guard armor that didn't look like Sailor Moon, I noticed a bizarre difference in Japanese that almost passed me by. When taking the Blue Trinity up to the balcony, a strange barrel sat where the chest usually sits. I couldn't pick it up since the ceiling was too low and it would just fly over Sora's head, and after breaking it, I got a postcard out of it. I have absolutely no idea why the devs made this chest originally a breakable barrel, considering no other barrel in the game works like this, and this was changed immediately afterwards in the international version.
A journey where you never know who you'll run into next. Kingdom Hearts for PlayStation 2, rated E for everyone.
Wonderland wasn't very different as far as I could tell. Did you know you can free Donald and Goofy from their cages if they get caught in the court? Trickmaster also looks way better in its original color scheme, actually resembling the cards it's supposed to invoke with the black and red color palette. After crash landing into Deep Jungle, I noticed that the camera doesn't pan down to see where Sora's landing when taking a big jump, and I missed a chest because of this. It seems this basic function of the camera was a Final Mix edition, so you have to make blind jumps in vanilla. For old time's sake, I decided to cook the ether just like when I first played KH1 and got lost in Deep Jungle. And now, Clayton time.
Clayton?
Not Clayton! Not Clayton!
In Japanese, fire only costs half a bar of yellow MP instead of a full bar, so I took this opportunity to abuse it and give Clayton a taste of his own medicine. I was told fire deals slightly less damage in Japanese, but to me it looked just about as good as always, killing the furniture about as fast as I'd expect with 4 MP when I tested it. In my international playthrough, I decided to fight opposite armor as soon as possible for the early arrow since Agrabah is an absolute doozy on vanilla expert mode. For some reason, this guy got sent into orbit during the fight. I then installed my new haste gummy and set out into the mid-game. Agrabah turned out to be a hot pot of weird vanilla differences which became clear as soon as I came across everyone's favorite boss, Pot Centipede. This thing somehow gave me a bigger headache than usual as this asshole flexed an ability of his that I have never seen before on my Final Mix playthroughs, the uncanny ability to heal. I was so flabbergasted seeing its health bar regenerate so much during the early phases of the fight that I thought it was vanilla exclusive behavior until I consulted KH1 speedrunner Glitched, who still runs on the old PS2 versions to this day. Apparently, Pot Centipede heals whenever the spider barrels in the fight rejoin into the boss, something that only happens if your damage is too low to push him into the next phase of the fight, and vanilla struggles here in Agrabah to deal enough damage, so you end up getting outpaced by his healing if you fall behind. To make matters worse, Pot Centipede's barrel body has a big enough hitbox on vanilla, causing Sora to clank even when directly hitting the head. I fared much better in my Japanese playthrough, but it was here that a glaring performance issue, particularly worse than the Japanese version, appeared, where the game shits itself when there's a high enough amount of orbs and enemies on the screen, tanking the game's frame rate. The Tiger Head fight was more of the same annoying nonsense in International, but when I got here in the Japanese version, I found something that shocked me. The fight is actually so much better in this first version of the game somehow. Instead of starting to shake Sora off after about 8 eye beams, it went to about 20 before it started to shake. If I hadn't gotten blasted off by a beam, I would have been able to easily one-cycle the boss even without deflecting the beams for extra damage. Somehow, the worst boss in the game wasn't even so bad in the very first version. Agrabah wasn't done surprising me, however, as the Jafar 1 fight played out very differently from Final Mix as well. The usual strategy to keep this dude in place is to slip in a cheeky blizzard after a 2-hit combo to activate his weird shell bubble to prevent him from acting for a little while you wail on him. However, Jafar doesn't seem to have this defense at all in vanilla, and he also violently staggers to basic swings as if they were finishers. Because of this, you could hypothetically keep him from ever flying away if you do the fight perfectly. Meanwhile in Final Mix you have no choice but to eventually let him teleport away unless you have beginner mode damage. Genie Jafar was about the same, however, and after clearing the world, I popped the green trinity in the storage room and I found an unexpected power boost that you don't get in Final Mix. It was at this point that I realized Vanilla has a lot more random power-ups that you can acquire, specifically 2 attached to trinities and another on the 10th postcard which gives you a defense up in the Final Mix version. Meanwhile, my Japanese staff playthrough managed to get Critical Plus at level 21, a strange ability that you typically wouldn't associate with the staff route. It's time to talk about treasure chests. From Vanilla to Final Mix, there are a great deal of chest rewards that have been changed. Vanilla had an overabundance of gummy pieces and chests that got mostly changed out for often FM exclusive items, Dalmatian locations were shuffled around, and power-ups were reduced to all but 1 chest. Excluding the synthable power-ups, 12 can be acquired in Vanilla while only 5 power-ups are available in Final Mix. I suspect this is due to beginner mode giving you 8 power-ups at the start in Final Mix, as if to give the player these random power-ups right at the start of the game rather than all difficulties being able to gain a full Keyblade's worth of power in random chests throughout the game. I decided to stop by Olympus at this point to cash in on some easy cup rewards like the early gravity from Phil Cup and an AP up from the time trial, a direly needed stat up thanks to my starting options. Thanks to picking up the Vanilla Shield route, however, I bulldozed Cloud with Wishing Lamp counterattack spam, seemingly the only counterplay of Cloud's persistent guarding. Cerberus was just as obnoxious as ever, but posed no real threat thanks to having Cure and Arrow by this point. I always used to think that counterattack was the definitive factor in which route was the best in Vanilla, and it certainly came in clutch for me while doing this solo trial. I decided to get in some early synth grinding to make a quick magic armlet and was able to snag a lucky mystery goo from some mushrooms, which you only need 5 of to make Ultima Weapon instead of the 10 required in Final Mix. Across the board, synth grinding in Vanilla is much easier with the one exception of never getting Encounter Plus, which is a Final Mix edition, which means you have to double room transition to respawn enemies. The Magic Armlet is one of the best early synthable items that you can get in Final Mix, available right away on the first set of synthable items, and it only requires 2 of each elemental shard, but in Vanilla it appears on the second page and requires 2 Mithril as well. I really recommend taking the time to synth the Magic Armlet when you're playing Final Mix if you care to spare the time. A few loops through the hotel makes for an easy +1 MP once you unlock the synth shop. Thanks to this detour, the Magic Armlet let me progress through the game as if I had the extra +1 starting MP from choosing staff on my international playthrough. When I got to Monstro, I noticed something extremely odd in the mouth room in the Japanese version. These seemingly useless boxes that can be pushed into the water. I don't think any version of the game features these boxes in any other rooms other than this, and they don't even seem to help you get anywhere. It's no wonder they're absent in every other version, but it's got me wondering what the point of these were even supposed to be before they were removed. When warping back to Monstro, both vanilla versions have a 50% chance on whether or not Monstro will reappear to swallow the gummy ship again. This can either be very convenient, saving the time and hassle of getting swallowed just to leave and head to Halloween Town, or a real pain in the ass if you want to revisit Monstro for any reason. To make matters worse for players wanting to go back to Monstro, Vanilla provides no options when pausing during gummy ships to get back to the world map, so you're either forced to run the whole route or self-destruct to try again faster. Defeating Parasite Cage 2 got Goofy to level 30, where Vanilla versions grant him the greatest support ability in the entire franchise, MP Gift. Not only is it given 12 levels early compared to Final Mix, but it's also cheaper in vanilla versions as well, costing only 1 bar of MP for Goofy to give 3 to either Sora or Donald. Goofy still gets his first stack of MP Rage at level 39 just like in Final Mix, but he also gets his second stack earlier at level 45 instead of 57, which is insanely convenient since it's about at this level that you'll reach Bastion 2 and have virtually infinite MP. Even with just a single stack of MP Rage though, Goofy getting hit hard a single time will likely yield a bar of MP when his reserve is completely dry, and with all this combined, you can easily defeat Phantom without eating any of your MP items as long as Peter Pan doesn't have his limits equipped, or better yet, dead.
Okay, I just snuck in. Locked. I'm deep underground in Disney's top secret labs, where they make everything. Nice. Whoa. Wait until everybody sees this. Okay. Now what happens if I do this?
Hello. What would you like to know?
Whoa. What's the deal with Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts is the first video game of its kind. The project brings together the leaders in animated entertainment and advanced video game development. Gamers must battle through 10 worlds with over 100 different characters. From movies such as Nightmare Before Christmas, Aladdin, Alice in Wonderland, The Lion King, Hercules.
I get it. It's like you're controlling the movies. How is it made?
Accessing interview with game designer.
What's he saying?
The game took over 3 years and involved over 200 of our most talented artists and programmers. This game includes a new real-time 3D battle engine that has never been seen before. Kingdom Hearts is now available for PlayStation 2.
Nice. Give me the cheat codes. Oh no, someone's coming. I'm out of here. Hey! That's it for now. I'm shutting down.
Back in Traverse Town, I snagged another obscure Keyblade, Wishing Star. It's an easily missable Keyblade, which I forgot to get until after Halloween Town during my international run. This weird thing has the uncanny ability to deal a 100% critical hit rate, which is more potent on the PS2 versions thanks to the +4 strength crit bonus here. One of the biggest balance changes from vanilla to final mix was the nerf to all Keyblades that have critical bonus damage. By default, all Keyblades will gain a flat +2 strength bonus on a critical hit, but Keyblades advertised for their power will gain an extra on top of that. In vanilla, these Keyblades hit for a massive +4 extra strength on top of a crit, but it was nerfed to +2 in final mix. Some Keyblades were buffed to compensate for this, but others were left behind, which I'll break down once I acquire them. In Halloween Town, I beelined it straight to the power-up chest that I usually get in final mix, which happens to be the only one that you can get in a chest in that version. While I was in Oogie Manor, I forgot to get the red Trendy inside the elevator lantern room, which is entirely missable in this version once the manor is destroyed. I managed to pick it up in my Japanese playthrough at least. The early Spellbinder and Magic Armlet I picked up came in clutch when I rolled up into the evil playroom.
I was just following orders.
The Oogie fights didn't pose too much trouble, but I did accidentally summon Genie when trying to cast Arrow from the menu thanks to the summon button being at the bottom in the PS2 versions. I had a jolly romp through a little bit of 100 Acre Wood and literally farmed Rabbit's Garden for some elixirs, which have a drop rate influenced by Lucky Strike. Later I found out that this farm would be entirely redundant thanks to how Bambi works in vanilla, but it was still nice to hang out here and practice my pull-out game. Almost immediately after landing in Neverland, I finally got Blitz from popping Anti-Sora, making this the first combo modifier of the run finally acquired at level 33. The real Anti-Sora fight itself, however, was as miserable as always though, made worse by the lower frame rate making the already bad ceiling make air combos intolerable. To remedy this, I mashed on Anti-Sora with counterattack and crits from Wishing Star. Counterattack spam is one of my favorite parts of KH1 that feels even better to use on this PS2 version since air comboing feels less comfortable, so I slapped Hook with the counterattack spam too. Had a near death to Fire Ass though, watch out for this rare interaction. After completing the world, I got Fairy Harp, which is a funny Keyblade balance-wise. It's short as hell but has insane strength and extra MP, making this a must-use on HD versions, but on PS2 you would have to be an advanced kid to use this successfully on 30 FPS, since Keyblade length feels extra important on a lower frame rate. The balance of Keyblades really feels jumbled up as a result of the nerfs to crit bonus and the introduction of higher frame rates in Combo Master. Now that Neverland was out of the way, it was finally synth farming time for my international playthrough. It's best to get the bulk of the farm out of the way before I progress much further so as to avoid that post-Hollow Bastion difficulty spike. I had the best results looping the rabbit hole, since you can get Blaze, Frost, and Spirit Shards and Frost Gems all in one loop. Unfortunately, this was the last area I checked out, so I ended up overgrinding a bit, but it all worked out in the end. Bambi's drop tables are quite better in vanilla versions, yielding doubled and sometimes tripled odds for the world-specific drops you get when filling Bambi's Bloodlust meter. You even get way better consumables, higher tier potions instead of standard potions, mega ethers instead of ethers, and even elixirs and mega elixirs in the endgame worlds. I was no expert on KH1 farming while making this video, but I can say with confidence that Bambi's insane drop table is half of what makes vanilla synthing so much smoother compared to Final Mix, with the other half being thanks to the non-existence of stone tier materials and the pesky rare Heartless that drop them. My save file rolled over to hour 13 at this point, so I stopped by the clock tower for a free orichalcum. If you didn't know, the clock tower has special doors that give items based on your save file's playtime from 1 through 12, and after 12, it loops the rewards back to 1. So at 13 hours, I got the orichalcum for 1 o'clock. While I was out farming materials, I stumbled upon a group of white mushrooms that you don't see in Final Mix due to the pink agaricus encounter that overrides them. This means that Deep Jungle and Atlantica get 2 unique white mushroom rooms that don't exist anymore. After my manic 3-hour synth grind, I decided to run down Atlantica with the insane stock of items I just amassed. Thankfully, my spells were buff as hell thanks to the 9 MP I dropped in with, so the world was as much of a breeze as it could be. I only found out recently that this chest blocking the shortcut to the ship is an actual chest holding an orichalcum. I also got perplexed in Ursula's lair by this strange lock-on target and somehow managed to die without any enemies in the room before I figured out how to manifest this mithril chest. I skipped this world in the Japanese playthrough, but it's worth mentioning that in Sonic Shadow Silver 2's exhaustive list of Japanese version differences, big face bosses like Ursula 2 and Chernabog have no hitbox on the back of their head in this version, so cheesing Ursula with backshots is not possible there. After Atlantica, I did a bit of cleanup before Hollow Bastion, going through the rest of the available Olympus Cups and their extensions, and I got a vanilla exclusive mithril for the Pegasus Cup solo. I also got Strike Raid, which has a really funny balance history between Japanese and international versions. Strike Raid is an absurdly good limit, costing only 2 MP for 7 tosses, which add plus 10 strength per hit, plus 12 for the final throw, full iframes for the whole limit, and guaranteed critical hits for every hit of it on top of it all. In the Japanese version, however, it used to cost 3 MP instead of 2. Instead, the much harder to use Ars Arcanum only costs 2 MP in that version, as their costs were switched around for the international release. I really dislike this change because as satisfying as it is, Strike Raid is much too effective and less fun than whipping around Ars Arcanum in battle. The first part of the synth grind was finished, so it was finally time for Hollow Bastion. I buffed my gummy ship even further beyond and set out for the castle. In my Japanese playthrough, I noticed a goofy little change with the bubbles in the dungeon where this particular bubble lets you walk around underwater for a couple of seconds before it sends you on your way, whereas all future versions take you straight across. The developers must have found this redundant in this area, so they removed it. When I got my Keyblade back, I got to unleash the power of 2 MP Ars Arcanum in my Japanese playthrough against the ever so annoying Entrance Hall Riku fight. I have no idea why both KH1 and KH2 felt the need to do this, but in both games, Riku gets to have one awful boss fight, and here in the Entrance Hall, this guy has the most annoying stagger behavior. As soon as you hit him 3 times, he will instantly counterattack on the 3rd hit, and hits from down and Goofy contribute to this flinch counter as well. To make matters worse, one of his attacks is a dash through which evades your attacks. As a side note, it's here in the entrance hall where you can really hear the nice reverb lost in the HD versions, because developers nowadays hate the kind of stylish post-processing these older games had in their sound mixing. Either that, or this kind of reverb effect was made through some quirk of the PS2 that was lost in the HDification of these games. After beating him somewhat easily, it's time to get more chests. This incredibly well-hidden chest up by the emblem piece door has a power-up in vanilla instead of an AP up, adding to the list of free power-ups you can't get in Final Mix. The Spinny Bobber even had a free mithril for me to pick up, making synthing even easier. Eventually. As much as I prefer using Ars over Strike Raid, I can't deny how satisfying it is to land these Strike Raids, especially with the boosted power of vanilla critical hits which make this limit even more busted. I took a detour to get what is usually the Crystal Crown chest in Final Mix just to get trolled by a useless float G piece which I already had maxed out on. Maleficent time. I whipped out my metal massive chocobo I got earlier to shred her to death with Ars. Despite having much less strength in my Japanese playthrough, I got through her just as quickly thanks to the much cheaper Rs cost here. Fights like this must have been why the developers opted to nerf Rs, thanks to the insane burst damage you get against single targets like this that stay in one place and die to death as you deal a million hits while iframed. It's also here where a major difference in Japanese can be noticed: health bars. Maleficent has an entire extra health bar here, starting on a full pink bar instead of an orange bar, and yet my damage per hit seems to be much higher than on International. The extra HP starts towards the late game and becomes absurdly noticeable with Hollow Bastion 1 encounters and onward. For bosses in Heartless and Hollow Bastion 1 and the scaled Heartless that start appearing everywhere else, HP bars are about 20% higher on average, and this scales upwards to about 40% in Hollow Bastion 2, and then up to 60% higher in End of the World on average. The most absurd example of all of this is in the Hades Cup, where Hades has double the amount of health as usual, clocking in at 12 bars of HP, and Rock Titan has a whopping 15 bars of health. It's so weird that the devs only made 5 visible health bars appear when the very first version of the game pushed these fights into having health bars as big as KH2 super bosses. Despite all this, Sora's damage output is larger, since bosses have significantly lower defense values towards the late game, making the damage cap both bigger and easier to reach. To top it all off, late game bosses also hit for slightly less strength as well. KHWiki.com lists boss stats between all versions, so check them out if you're curious about exact boss stats. Getting back on topic to Hollow Bastion, I tried out the maximum stop gravity spam on Dragon Maleficent, but it seems much less effective here for some reason despite having very high magic. I didn't see any listed nerfs to gravity magic in any of the resources I found, but I know for a fact that this really should have killed her by the time my elixirs ran out, so I'm not exactly sure what happened here. All I can tell is that the gravities seem much less effective for the flat damage towards the end of her health bars, where the percentage damage falls off heavily. In Japanese, Dragon Maleficent has yet another extra health bar, sporting the maximum displayed HP of 5 full bars despite being a Hollow Bastion 1 encounter. For a numeric reference, each full health bar is 300 HP, with 1500 HP being the maximum that can be shown on screen, not that this has ever stopped the developers though. I didn't have very much MP, especially compared to my international playthrough when I fought Dragon Maleficent in Japanese, but stop magic is listed to not last as long in the Japanese version, and I could definitely feel that during this fight. Now it's time for everyone's favorite unskippable cutscene, which I'm gonna play in full for maximum effect.
Kairi! 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 Open your eyes!
It's no use. That girl has lost her heart. She cannot wake up.
What? You're not Riku?
The keyhole cannot be completed, so long as the last Princess of Heart still sleeps.
The princess? Kairi's a princess?
Yes. And without her power, the keyhole will remain incomplete. It is time she awakened.
Whoever you are, let Riku go! Give him back his heart!
But first, you must give the princess back her heart.
What's...
Don't you see yet? The princess's heart is responding. It has been there all along. Kairi's heart rests within you.
Kairi's inside me?
I know all that there is to know.
Tell me, who are you?
It is I, Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness. So, I shall release you now, Princess. Complete the keyhole with your power. Open the door. Lead me into everlasting darkness.
Sora! Forget it. There's no way you're taking Kairi's heart. Take that!
Welcome, Oblivion! Nothing.
Here
it comes!
Come on! Heal! Take that! This is it! Heal!
Open your heart to darkness! Surrender!
Come on!
I absolutely destroyed Riku here with the power of Metal Chocobo, just like I did in my first ever playthrough of KH1. Back then, I was so terrified that I would get some kind of alternative cutscene if I lost here, so I fought my ass off and beat him first try back in the day. I suffered one of my only deaths on my Japanese playthrough here, and for some reason on this version, Sora breaks his arm when he dies. He also has no death quote as well for some reason, which is weird considering that arm is doing at least a full 180-degree twist. While making this video, I learned that this fight went through changes between all three versions, specifically to how Riku Ansem retaliates after 4 hits. If you haven't seen a KH1 speedrun, the secret sauce to this fight is abusing Riku Ansem's forced retaliation to loop him to death. While he still has orange health remaining, Riku Ansem retaliates with a random attack after 4 flinches. But once he enters phase 2, his retaliation is always the same, and this is what we can take advantage of. In HD, Riku Ansem immediately activates his spin slash after 4 flinches, which Sora automatically parries with most attacks. As long as you start your next combo at the right time, you can keep up this loop for the rest of the fight until he goes down. In the Japanese version, Riku Ansem retaliates with Dark Faraga instead of instantly spin slashing on the 4th hit. This makes looping him piss easy, since all you have to do is walk around him while he winds up the Dark Faraga and start up another combo, just as long as you don't swing too early. In the international version, however, Riku breaks out of stun with a step away before retaliating with the spin slash. Because of this step away, Sora doesn't automatically parry the spin slash when Riku Ansem hits his flinch limit, but with some tight timing, you can continue the loop if you wait out the swing. Alternatively, you can stuff him so hard with combos that he never get a chance to retaliate at all. During the step animation, Riku can be staggered before he gets a chance to spin, allowing for a very precise infinite combo. This isn't as easy as it looks, however. The timing for knocking him out of the step is pretty tight, requiring an unusual setup for his flinch count. If you're wondering why I'm calling it flinch count and not revenge value, it's because KH1 has its own funky version of the system where most humanoid bosses store the amount of hits taken before retaliation, whether or not the hits were in the same combo, and Riku Ansem is one of them. In order to pull this off, I raise his flinch count to 3 before dealing a full 4-hit combo on him. It just so happens to work out that the first swing lands while he's stepping away, getting an extra damage that does not raise his flinch count, and the second swing lands at just the right time to interrupt him from the step away and restart the stagger loop properly. From here, it's a single bonk on the head followed by a 4-hit combo until he's defeated. This particular setup requires Sword Route to have Air Combo Plus at this point in the playthrough, but with some careful tinkering it might be possible to pull it off without it, or you could always settle for the easier loop.
PlayStation 2, rated E for everyone.
After returning to Traverse Town, I somehow scored a Defender Shield on my 18th Defender kill, which is insane considering it's gotta be like a 0.4% drop rate with my one lucky strike. On my Japanese playthrough, I tackled the one and only super boss present on this version, the Phantom. That's right, the only post-game this version had to offer besides the Hades Cup was this doink-ass super boss, and his color palette is quite different here too. Thankfully, the Phantom doesn't have absurdly higher health like the rest of the endgame in the Japanese version, and also has 10 less points of defense much like the rest of the late game bosses. Now that the post-Hollow Bastion 1 Heartless have appeared, it was time to enter the synth mines yet again for my international playthrough. It mostly consisted of crystal farming off of the newfound Hollow Bastion mobs that appear in Traverse Town, where I spammed the ever-loving shit out of Strike Raid as the developers intended. After this, I scooped up Oathkeeper where I noticed it has an oddly pink trail, which must have been a mistake considering they changed it to white in Final Mix. Maybe they accidentally gave it the trail texture of Divine Rose, or maybe it's pink to represent Kairi's color palette. Who knows? I didn't realize it at the time, but it's at this point in Vanilla where Sid starts selling the Haste 2 gummy exclusively in Vanilla, which is the earliest you can acquire it in Vanilla since it only appears otherwise in a chest in End of the World, where it's completely useless to get at that point. I souped up my gummy ship yet again and set off back to Hollow Bastion 2. I took an alternative entrance to the library, which causes a somewhat unique cutscene where Beast approaches Belle from the other side, which is always fun to show off. On Japanese, the enemy health bars get scary here. This large body has a whole bar and a half of health. This is all scary at first, but then you realize your damage is so much stronger in this version that it makes mincemeat of that extra fat. On International, I noticed a difference in the spelling of Ars Arcanum's finisher, reading Finis, which I realized makes a lot more sense considering the Latin theme of this limit. I guess HD versions over-translated this line, adding the H as if it was some kind of typo they made back in the day. Lame. I picked up Prime pre-nerf Oblivion and decided to use it for the rest of the run. Of all the Keyblades nerfed by the global crit bonus nerf, Oblivion suffers the worst since crits are all that Keyblade has going for it compared to its competitors. It sports a low recoil stat and a -1 MP penalty, but in exchange has +4 crit bonus and boosted length, a factor which matters a bit less with Combo Master and 60 FPS. As if it wasn't already bad enough that Oblivion's crit bonus got taken down to +2 strength, Divine Rose got a random ass buff from 10 strength to a whopping 13 strength, which is higher than vanilla Ultima Weapon's raw strength stat. This completely kills the use case for Oblivion in all categories except for how long it takes to go and grab Divine Rose, which is why it gets used for endgame in standard / proud mode speedruns of Final Mix nowadays. Here's a quick visual of all the Keyblades that got rebalanced for Final Mix. Finally, it was end of the world time. Final Dimension has not one but 2 power-ups for grabs in Vanilla, 2 defense ups, and even a second Omega Arts guaranteed after the first Behemoth. Extra Omega Arts are possible to get in Final Mix, but only off of a 5% chance rare drop off of the respawnable Arch Behemoths guarding the exit. When investigating this, I realized that Behemoths in Vanilla have no variations, and the 2 Guy Fieri variants were Final Mix editions, likely added to give these guys some era-appropriate variety. Things get crazy here on Japanese, where the game balance of this version completely jumps the shark. Invisibles roll up with 2 full bars of HP, and even Angel Stars have a full bar and a half. This all seems scary at first again, but then you remember how insanely buff you are as your crits knock off an entire bar each. The damage cap on Heartless lines up perfectly with a full health bar, making for a very satisfying visual. What makes this damage so crazy is I didn't even do any grinding in this playthrough. But I did get all of those extra power-ups though, so maybe that's why they became so scarce in Final Mix. All but 3 of the chests in this world are different in Vanilla, especially the ones found in the World Terminus. Instead of what they contain in Final Mix, you get duplicates of the accessories that you get in their respective worlds, except for Atlantica's Terminus, which still gives you an AP up, since Atlantica doesn't have a world-specific accessory. For this reason, world-specific accessories sell for 500 money in Vanilla instead of the symbolic 10 money you get in Final Mix to dissuade the player from selling your only copy of them. Chernabog was extra weird in Japanese. Can you see why? Two things. There's no Chernabog theme, and this guy has Sephiroth tier invisible health. I like the intimidation value that these Invisibars have. It must have been terrifying to experience the Invisibar for the first time against this Satan-ass looking dude. The international version is where Night on Bald Mountain made its debut, where it sounds kinda funky thanks to the aggressive KH1 MIDI. After the final rest fight, I ended the world with exactly the amount of Gale I needed to finally synth my Ultima Weapon. It's interesting to see it with a strength stat of 12 instead of 14, but thankfully Final Mix raised its base strength by 2 to compensate for the global nerf to Keyblades with a critical bonus. I immediately tried to take on Sephiroth with Ultima, but my stats were still slightly too low, so I decided to work my way up through the rest of the post-game first. You want your strength stat to be in the mid to upper 50s to deal good damage to him, up to a maximum of 61 strength to hit the damage cap with any hit, and I was only at 51 strength by this point. In the Hades Cup, I learned the true value of Vortex. It's kinda like a mini version of Vicinity Break from KH2 FM. I guess it's not such a bad ability in vanilla when Slapshot and Slide Dash don't exist to take its place. Kurt, Ziza, and Ice Titan were a one and done deal for me since I know these fights like the back of my hand. Considering how International got this exclusive content early, it makes International something of a special version from a Japanese perspective. We got Final Mix Super Boss content before getting Final Mix Sora ability content, so Square Enix forced us to fight these guys without Leaf Bracer and the rest of the new Final Mix abilities. We didn't even get the rewards they drop in Final Mix. In exchange for no Zantetsuken, no Diamond Dust, and no One-Winged Angel, these super bosses do drop quite a bit more EXP, however. At least it was easier for us to synth Ultima Weapon for these bozos. With the extra levels I squeezed out of them, it was finally Sephiroth time. Without Leaf Bracer, Sephiroth is a much scarier foe. However, International Sephiroth has a significant difference that levels the playing field. No bullshit instant retaliations to worry about. In Final Mix, Sephiroth will instantly counterattack with whatever random move he wants to use after either 4 flinches in a row or 7 flinches regardless of when the hit was dealt, making you keep track of your hits. Fire Pillars in particular are a massive headache as a forced revenge attack since you're right in his face when it happens, forcing you to use Strike Raid if you want to guarantee that you won't get hit. It's as if the developers wanted this fight to lean more heavily into the RPG side of things, forcing you to crank your defenses or rely on limits or Leaf Bracer iframes to deal with the otherwise guaranteed hits. He doesn't counterattack like this on International. Instead, he always warps away and then attacks with Step Slash in phases 1 and 2, and his Dodge This attack in phase 3. The lack of his instant counterattack and your ability to use Leaf Bracer to cheese with iframes genuinely makes this a better fight in my opinion, letting you no damage the fight with skill but also forcing you to earn your cures without Leaf Bracer's iframes. It's definitely an easier fight than the Final Mix version, but it's way more honest and fun as a super boss in the International version. With good timing and jump-ins, you can loop him very effectively, which must be why the developers buffed him. Sephiroth was defeated, and my reward was nothing but a fat 18k EXP and Pride, 8,000 more experience than you get in Final Mix. No Keyblade or cool cutscene to be found in this version, he just goes away and that's it. Now, all that was left was to beat the game, but before we do that, let's ascend. There's a little bit of bugged geometry on top of the wooden shack, and for whatever reason, it lets you jump infinitely into the skybox once you land on it. There's nothing particularly game-breaking that you can do with this, but it's a fun little activity exclusive to the vanilla versions that you can play with before finishing the game. Ansem looks quite different here, since 1.5 HD chose to backport Dream Drop Distance's Ansem model into the game for some reason, just like with Sora's. On the Japanese version, the flying Ansem phases have a very odd camera angle, and Invisibars for every phase. Despite everything else having massive health bars, the core had a pitifully small health bar, which is weird since the developers want you to use gravity on this thing. I defeated Ansem just as easily on my bare minimum Japanese playthrough as I did on my completionist international playthrough with Ultima Weapon, and that was that. In the Japanese version of the final cutscene, something significant caught my eye, or rather my ear. Kairi has a line of dialogue here unique to the Japanese dub not present in English. After the lands part and Sora is seen inaudibly calling out to Kairi, we hear her thoughts as she declares, This is a literal translation of the line that I spent a lot of time working out so I could try and figure out why it's absent here in the English dub. My interpretation of the line here is that Kairi has a moment of confirmation. Despite Sora fading out of view into another world, she still feels her connection to Sora all the same, which after all is one of the main themes of this game in any language. In English, Kairi's final line to Sora is,
I know you will!
expressing a similar degree of certainty that the Japanese exclusive monologue provides, whereas in Japanese, her line is,
約束だよ!
just like in the Promise Charm cutscene.
約束だよ.
It's no significant loss of meaning, but I do feel that Kairi expressing this sentiment once the two have actually been separated feels more impactful to me. I spent hours trying to dig into the Japanese grammar used here to see if there was any reason the translators couldn't have localized this line in English, just to realize there's a simpler explanation. Simple and Clean straight up has some lyrics smack dab in the middle of where this monologue occurs, but Hikari leaves the space blank, leaving room for a monologue. Maybe some translation decisions are that simple. Thanks to sealing all the keyholes, I got the original secret ending, since Deep Dive was a final mix edition. The credits also have this weird tiling effect, a technique which Square Enix used to love to do with the old low-res trailers for the handheld games, which is weird since they don't use this for the Japanese version. Overall, I really like both vanilla versions for their unique quirks. Despite the lack of super bosses in the Japanese version and the bare-bones set of combo modifiers for Sora in both, I feel strongly that the gameplay experience of both versions really holds up with the experience of playing the final mix version, which feels very experimental at times rather than being definitively better in all categories. This is a grace that I cannot extend to the vanilla versions of Kingdom Hearts 2, which feel painfully incomplete compared to 2FM. Which I plan on documenting in a future video just like this one. Across all three versions of Kingdom Hearts 1, there's a definite trend towards scaling down Sora's raw damage output while buffing the more technical sides of the game as the developers gained confidence in the system mechanics enough to increase the difficulty of Standard Mode, and even add Proud Mode. EXP 0, however, was added in the HD version, and the only reason why level 1 is playable at all is thanks to the hidden damage scaling and pseudo second chance that it provides when equipped. Final Mix makes you earn your strength stat by clearing the optional worlds for more EXP and or getting better accessories rather than finding it on the ground for free. And if you want that free strength back, Beginner Mode provides it to you at the start. In the process of making this video, I stumbled upon a way to restore the boss differences from older versions with varying degrees of accuracy by literally importing the model files from the old versions, thanks to some help from one of the Kingdom Hearts modding discords. I was shocked to learn about this since I haven't seen any mods made to restore vanilla KH1 boss scripts, but after thinking about it for a bit, it makes sense. All three versions of Kingdom Hearts 1 are iterations upon each other, and people speculate that the HD version runs in some kind of partial emulation pipeline, so it makes sense that some of the files would still be compatible. With this possible, the rest of the vanilla version differences might be easily replicable on the PC version, which I'm going to try and work on developing to preserve the vanilla experiences to the best of my ability. If you liked this video, do yourself a favor and give these old versions of Kingdom Hearts a try sometime. And make sure to hit up this video with all the usual bells and whistles or whatever. As for differences unique to the PS2 version of Final Mix, it was here that we first got the ability to skip cutscenes, but only after they've been seen at least once. There's also a button on the main menu for a Final Fantasy X-2 trailer, which is pretty cool to see. I'll be streaming my first ever full playthrough of the PS2 version of Final Mix soon to look for more subtle differences between PS2 and HD Final Mix, so check out my stream if you're interested in that. I've also streamed the vanilla versions of these games in the past as well, even the French and German dubs of the international version, so I'll include a playlist below to all my archived vanilla streams. There are almost certainly many other things I didn't show in the video, like the owl outside of Merlin's house and the ability to cast Blizzard on the lanterns in Halloween Town to turn the flame blue, but let me know in the comments below if there's anything else unique to the PS2 versions that I missed. And thank you very much for watching.